Hi, everyone. If you want to please turn on your cameras, that would be awesome if you have the ability to do that. I don't know where you're located right now, but I would like to introduce you to our colleagues out of the University of Glasgow. That would be Dr. Neil Evans and Joyce Wason. They are here to help us understand a little bit more about this FeedPass program that you've heard about and that you've talked to me probably about. And then also, just so that you know, on the call as well is Elizabeth Schumann and Ryan Bonderhar from the college OIA split appointment. So they're here to represent the OIA side of this, because as the FeedPass program works, basically you study abroad for a year, and that education abroad, or global education, I think is what we're calling it today. That global education for the year is how you would complete your final year here at Animal Sciences at OSU, as well as starting your first year with the University of Glasgow Veterinary Medicine program. So with that, I'm actually going to not talk, believe it or not, and going to ask Neil and Joyce to kind of take over for us today to introduce you a little bit more to the program and certainly give you an opportunity to ask questions. It looks like there's two more sitting in the waiting room, so let me have them join us as well. Okay, so I'll try to watch that. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in chat and we can get to them. But if you're thinking about a question as Dr. Evans or Joyce is talking, please go ahead and write it down, put it in chat, and we'll come back to it if we need to. But with that, then again, turn on your cameras if you can. And then please, Neil and Joyce, go ahead and take over.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, do I need to give you share?
Can you give me screen sharing abilities, and then I'll...
I can do that. I apologize. I meant to do that first. There you go.
Okay, thank you very much, Kelly. And it's a pleasure to be kind of meeting with you, even though it's only virtual. It'd be much better if we were there in person, but these days we have to make do with these virtual meetings. But what we wanted to do was to tell you a bit about, again, as Kelly said, a bit more about the FeedPass program and how we think this can provide you with a Scottish start to a worldwide career in animal health. So my name is Neil Evans. I'm the Deputy Associate Dean for Learning and Teaching and Assessment. I'm also Professor of Integrative Physiology, so I teach on the veterinary program at Glasgow. And we're joined by my colleague, Joyce Wason. Joyce is the head of the Admissions and the Student Services unit. So, as you already know then, a little bit about the FeedPass program, this is a specific program which we've set up with high quality animal science programs across North America. And so there are 13 schools which are currently signed up as partners with regards to the FeedPass program. And the FeedPass program stands for the Facilitated Early Entry Program for Animal Science Students. So it's specifically targeted at you guys who are on an animal science program, but are thinking that you want to go on to a veterinary program. And it provides you with a whole series of different of benefits. One is it can provide you with peace of mind that you can have a guaranteed place at vet school from quite early on in your academic career, or possibly quite early on in your academic career, depending on where you are now. And that can be a great relief for a lot of people because it's very competitive to get into vet school. It can also save you some money because people are applying through the normal system, through the VMCAS system, have to pay fees associated with each application, and you wouldn't have to go through the VMCAS system, so that saves you money. It also hopefully saves you some stress because we're working with schools where we know the schools, we know their programs, so we don't need to put in place additional assessment methods like the GRE. And importantly, it will save you a year's worth of tuition fees compared to the traditional route, because as Kelly said, you'll effectively overlap the last year of your animal science degree with the first year of our veterinary program. The other thing that it allows you to do is effectively allows you to try out vet school and try out living in Glasgow, because during that year, you're still an OSU student, And if you don't like it during that year, in theory, you could apply somewhere else, or you could apply to a different course, or you could go on a completely different career path. But you've at least tried out what it's like to go on a vet program and to be at the University of Glasgow. So how does this work? Well, we have traditionally taken people onto our vet program using the VIMCAS system, and we still take people through that route. So it's still an option if you, depending on where you are in your educational journey. But if you do that, then we'd be looking at your 4 years of undergraduate being followed by the 5 years of our veterinary program. And a lot of the activity is therefore focused in that last year of your animal science program, where you'd be submitting your VIMCAS application in the fall of that year. You'd then possibly have to do GREs, collect your references, have supplemental essays submitted, have your interviews. But if everything went fine, then you'd be accepted. But that accepting onto vet school is not going to occur until maybe the spring of your senior year. So it is right at the end of your undergraduate degree program. But as I said, the FEPAS system allows you to kind of move that much earlier. Because in the FEPAS system, what happens is we are looking to potentially take applications as early as your sophomore year. So you'd apply in your sophomore year. The application is a very straightforward application. It's done internally, and you could get accepted as early as the fall of your sophomore year, or the early spring semester of your sophomore year. And the reason why we encourage people to think about it in the sophomore year is because they need to make sure they're covering all of the required courses for your animal science degree, which are not able to be kind of equivalent at the University of Glasgow during that junior year when you're still at OSU. Because in that final year, in your senior year, you'd be coming over and you'd be doing that as that study abroad experience at Glasgow. Now, at the end of that year, if you're successful in that year, then we would notify OSU, transfer credits back, and you would be able to graduate with your BSc. But also at that point, you're then automatically gaining entry to the BVMS program, but you get accelerated entry because you've just done the first year of the program. So this is where we're saying we have this overlap occurring. To get onto the FEPAS program, if you don't get on in the sophomore year, or if you are further on within your academic career, there's nothing stopping us looking at applications coming through in your junior year. It's just a matter of you have to work very closely with Dr. George to make sure, again, that you're covering those animal science requirements during that junior year. So what do you need to come onto the program? Well, we're looking for you to have chemistry, including organic chemistry, biology, and maths or physics. And you're already doing that typically as part of your animal science program. So there's nothing extra which you need to do. We're looking for students to have a GPA greater than or equal to 3.2. And that's not only just when you apply, you have to maintain that and keep that as a 3.2 by the time you're at the end of that junior year. We also look for you to have some practical animal-related work experience. Again, you'll be picking up quite a lot of that as you go through your degree program. And ideally, we'd like you to have at least 2 weeks with a veterinarian shadowing. Again, that needs to be achieved before the end of your junior year. So why would you want to come to Glasgow for this experience then? Well, we have fantastic facilities at Glasgow, and we're really lucky because we've got a fantastic campus that we are based on. So the University of Glasgow has got a main university, which is located within the city, but the Garscube estate, which was an old historic estate, which was gifted to the university many, many years ago, has provided us with a greenfield site, which is within the city limits, which we've developed up for veterinary education, clinical services, and for research. Even though we've developed that greenfield site, you can see from the images on the right-hand side here, it still remains a really nice, green, pleasant place to be. But I said we've got fantastic facilities on the Garscube campus. We have a state-of-the-art small animal hospital. So we rebuilt our hospital, a small animal hospital, in 2011, and therefore it has got very modern operating suites within it. It has a unique pain and rehabilitation centre. It had the first comparative oncology centre in Scotland. And it's got all of the kind of imaging techniques which you might expect to see in a modern human hospital present in our small animal hospital for veterinary use. Now, the small animal hospital operates as a referral hospital. So cases which are first of all seen by general practitioners get referred into our hospital if they're complicated or difficult cases. And we'll have about 16,000 cases that will come through that route every year. And any animal which comes into the small animal hospital is a teaching case. Students get access to all of those animals. But if we think where our graduates go, many of them are going to go into first opinion practice when they leave vet school. So therefore, we also run from the small animal hospital and out of hours first opinion practice. But our students also undertake clinical placements with the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals and the People's Dispensary for Sick Animals. And those are two charities which do first opinion veterinary work, small animal veterinary work in the city of Glasgow. And they will see over 32,000 cases every year. So your combined small animal caseload is talking about over 48,000. That's a fantastic resource for our students. Also located on the Garscube campus, we have an equine centre, the Wiper Centre for Equine Welfare. And this is split into two different components. The Glasgow Equine Hospital, which acts again as a referral hospital, and we'll see about 900 horses every year. And as a referral hospital, has inside it intensive care facilities, nuclear medicine facilities, MRI facilities. And again, any case which comes through that hospital is going to be available for teaching purposes. But in 2020, we also opened a first opinion practice, which we run from the Wiper Centre. You can see one of our clinicians loading up one of our vans down here. And so they will go out and they'll see first opinion cases on the stables where those horses are residing. But again, to ensure we get fantastic access of our students to first opinion equine practice, we also work with some private practices, so 3 private practices in this case. And again, our students will have placements there to see those first opinion cases. Also located on the same campus, the Garscube campus, we have the Scottish Centre for Production, Animal Health and Food Safety, which we tend to call the large animal unit. And the large animal unit is, again, the base for our ambulatory service, because our large animal clinicians will go out to the farms and work with the animals, typically on farm. And they will see maybe 1,600 animals through that route every year, seeing those particular cases. But you have to remember that production animal medicine is slightly different to companion animal medicine. A large aspect of production animal medicine is preventative medicine. So it's developing up flock and herd health schemes. And therefore, if we think about who our clinicians are working with, or the animals our clinicians are working with, when we encompass those animals as well, then that caseload increases to over 24,000. Now, the other aspect of production animal medicine is that sometimes an animal can be diagnosed with a problem, but the farmer will say that it's not economically worth their while treating that animal. And under those situations, we can bring those animals back to the Garscube campus, and we can maintain them within the large animal unit. So again, they can become teaching cases, a fantastic resource for our students. Now, for biosecurity, it does mean that if animals enter this facility, they're not going to go back to farm. They're typically going to leave through a door at the back of the building here. But luckily, that goes out to our post-mortem facility, and it means that you guys get access to seeing not only the disease process within the animals, but then possibly also the pathological changes in the tissues from those animals as well. So again, it furthers what we can gain from these animals with regard to teaching resources. Also located on the Garscube campus, we have fantastic research facilities. So the Henry Wellcome Centre for Comparative Medicine was opened within the last 15 years. The top building, which you can see here, is the UK Centre for Virus Research. And we were able to attract that onto the Garscube campus about 2 years ago. And as you can imagine, that was very fortuitous, because the last 2 years, it's been a very, very busy place, because there's a huge amount of COVID-related work which has been done at the UK Centre for Virus Research. Having these research facilities on site is important, because research underpins how we teach veterinary medicine at the University of Glasgow. And many members of staff who are involved in delivering the programme are also members of what we refer to as cross-disciplinary research institutes. And these are where we brought together expertise from the medical field, the veterinary field, and basic science to address important biological questions. And those are kind of given away by the title of some of these research institutes which I've listed here. If you want to get an idea of the quality of the work which is ongoing, we consistently have the highest research income from the research councils. So those are equivalent to the USDA and the NIH in North America. And we have a huge income coming from the animal charities as well. And Glasgow is also ranked highest amongst the UK veterinary schools with regard to veterinary research quality. Now, also located on the Garscube campus, in addition to those clinical and research facilities, we have fantastic student space. And that's been facilitated by the fact that we were able to build the Mary Stuart building where our old small animal hospital used to be. You can see from the images here, it's got these nice, open, flexible spaces which the students can use between different teaching events. But also located within the Mary Stuart, we have a seminar room, we have a series of tutorial rooms, we have lots of these study booths, which students use quite extensively, but we have catering facilities, we have student shop, we have banking facilities. So everything that you might want or need is present on that Garskew campus. Now, the University of Glasgow also has a farm. The farm is Cocknow Farm and Research Centre. It's located about 5 miles away from the Garskew campus. Again, it was originally an old estate. The estate house, you can see in the image here, is still standing in this case, and actually some of your teaching would occur within the bottom floor of the big house. But on the farm itself, the buildings here make up the commercial farm. The buildings here make up a large animal research unit. And located at Cocknow, we have a dairy unit. It's not a particularly big dairy unit because we're at the limits of commercial viability given our latitude. But we keep the dairy unit because it's an important educational resource. We have a beef suckler unit. We run about 550 head of breeding ewes. But anytime you go out there, there's lots of students out there because the students are very hands-on all the way from the beginning of the program. Within the first week of our veterinary program, you'd be out working with the animals at Cocknow. So why, again, would you want to think about coming to Glasgow as opposed to going to maybe one of the North American schools? Well, what you should be thinking about is your long-term futures. And if we think about the UK veterinary schools, they all have to be accredited by the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, the RCVS. And that accreditation allows you to work as a veterinarian in the UK, but it also allows you to work as a veterinarian in Europe, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Africa, in Asia. But on its own, it would not allow you to work as a veterinarian in North America. However, Glasgow also has AVMA approval as well, accreditation. It's one of the first overseas schools to get AVMA accreditation, and not all of the UK schools have got AVMA accreditation in addition to that RCVS accreditation. And if we're thinking about your futures, this is important because that dual accreditation basically means you can work as a veterinarian anywhere in the world without taking lots of additional exams. Because if you went to one of the North American schools, which was just AVMA accredited, to get that kind of passport to travel and work, you'd have to take lots of additional examinations. But you can achieve all of that in one fell swoop by coming through the Glasgow system. So how do we teach veterinary medicine at Glasgow? Well, our curriculum is delivered by means of a spiral integrated learning experience. So what we mean by this is that we're going to start introducing you to all aspects of veterinary medicine from at a basic level in the first and the early years of the program, but you'll revisit each of those areas as you progress up through the program itself. And as we revisit those areas, we'll cover it in more depth and in more detail. But it also means that you're going to be thinking about the unhealthy and the healthy from the very beginning of the program, and that differs from what you'll see in some North American schools. Now we have to organize that program. We do that by splitting it into 3 different phases. Foundation phase, which runs in years 1 and 2, is built around body systems and individual species. But again, all the teaching is built around common cases, because what we're looking to do is to build up your clinical skills, your clinical thinking, and your clinical reasoning from day 1 of the program itself. Foundation phase is followed by the clinical phase. That runs in years 3 and 4. Again, everything is delivered around clinical cases. Therefore, again, it's all building up your clinical skills, clinical reasoning, and those practical skills, because we need those to be really high quality by the end of the 4th year, because the last year of the program is our professional phase, and that is lecture free. So during that last year, you'll be working effectively within the hospitals or within those associated practices, putting into place what you have learned. And that occurs by means of what we refer to as our 6 core skills rotations. So this is in some ways almost like a protected internship, because you'll be treating patients, actual patients, but rather than doing this on your own as you would do in an internship in the States, you're doing this under the guidance of our clinicians. So they're there to help you make that transition from studying to working much easier. Now, during the last year of the program, that professional phase, we've also introduced 2 selective rotations. And this gives you an element of choice within the program. So you can choose an area of veterinary medicine that you want to do in more depth and more detail. And that can be done at Glasgow, but we've also got partners around the world so we can increase the breadth of what we offer to our students. So for instance, we have an equine rotation which runs in Morocco. We have a wildlife rotation which runs in South Africa. And we have a series of rotations which run in North America as well, if you're looking to build up what's on your resume. During final year, you'll also be prepared for and have the opportunity to sit your North American veterinary licensing examination. That's exactly the same examination that you would sit if you went to a North American school, and therefore you're not disadvantaged in any way by coming through our system. So what else is different at the University of Glasgow that you should know about so that you don't have any surprises? One thing which we think is important to point out is we do our assessments in a slightly different way that you might be used to. And this is because on a professional program, we think assessment shouldn't be driving you to learn the material. You should want to learn that material because it's what you need to know for your professional careers. So therefore, we have a reduced amount of assessment compared to what you might be used to. Each year of the program is a course. And at the end of each course, we have effectively one summative assessment. Now that one summative assessment does contain continual assessment, so it's not all resting on the end of year exams that you do. So about 30% comes from end of module MCQ tests, which you do. A further 10% comes from some continual assessment tasks, which you do. But 60% does come from that end of year assessment. And that's made up of a variety of different papers using short answer questions, practical spot questions, data interpretation questions. But we'll also use things like objective structured clinical exams. And these are important because these will test those practical skills we've taught you as you go through the program. But you don't have to worry about these summative assessments because as you go through the program, there are lots of opportunities for formative assessments. We train you effectively in all of those testing modalities before you have to meet them in a summative assessment. Now, the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons says that you have to undertake extramural studies. And extramural studies is effectively work experience which you do during your vacation. The Royal College splits it up into two different components. 12 weeks they refer to as preclinical EMS. It's very much animal husbandry related. It sits alongside our foundation phase. Now, if you're coming through the FEPAS program, because you've come through the animal science program, we can petition to get you exemptions against some of that extramural studies, that preclinical extramural studies. And it might be species specific. So you have to, if you document your animal experience as you come through the program, you can then work with our EMS coordinator to see how much of a discount against that 12 weeks you can claim. The clinical, alongside the clinical and professional phases, there's a further 26 weeks of EMS. So this is your clinical EMS, and this is when you're working with a veterinarian, putting into practice what you have learned. Now, your EMS can be done in the UK, but it doesn't have to be done here. You can do it absolutely anywhere as long as it's animal and veterinary related and it's approved by our EMS coordinator. So you can go back to your home environment, your home practice, any farms that you know and work there, and it can count towards your EMS. If you complete your EMS and you complete the academic components, then you will graduate. If we take you onto the program, we fully expect you to graduate as a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from the University of Glasgow. If we look at our graduates, we have full employment for our graduates. Of those that go into the internship matching program in North America, we have a 100% success rate. If we look at where they're working in practice, we've got examples of them working in all aspects of veterinary medicine. But we've also had graduates who've gone on to have teaching careers, gone on to work for the government, working in research, and again, a wide variety of either human research, veterinary research, or basic sciences research. All of these things are possible with a University of Glasgow degree. Another thing which we are very proud of that we can offer you is a home from home. We have fantastic support systems at Glasgow. We have a fantastic student support unit, which Joyce heads up, and it's quite unique in the fact that it's linked to admissions. So we can get involved in chatting to you guys who are thinking about going to vet school before you've even applied, but it's the same people who will be involved in looking after you as you go through the program at the University of Glasgow. All students are also allocated a mentor or an advisor of studies who's a member of the academic staff who will stay with you and help you and support you as you go through the program. But importantly, we can't forget this, is our students. The Garscube campus only teaches 2 programs, the veterinary medicine program, which takes in about 130 students per year, the veterinary biosciences program, which takes in 25 students per year. So in total on our campus, we only have about 720 students. And therefore, that means you can easily get to know all of the students in your year and then in the years above you and the years below you. And therefore, we have a very close-knit student community on that Garscube campus. And they help each other out as well. So whilst we'd like to think it's because of what we do, it's most probably because of that camaraderie we have amongst our student body that we do fantastically well in student satisfaction scores. So the Complete University Guide for 2021, Glasgow came out as the top UK veterinary school. It's the 3rd year running we've held that accolade. QS World Subject Rankings for 2021, we're in the top 10 globally. National Student Survey for 2021, overall satisfaction, Glasgow was the top AVMA accredited UK veterinary school. Guardian University Guide, University of Glasgow went up 10 points. For the 2nd highest placed university in Scotland, St Andrews was the only one that beat us, and they don't have a vet school, so that means we must have the best vet school as well. The Times Higher Education Awards again placed Glasgow as University of the Year in 2020. So all of these are indicating again the quality of our educational experience for our students. But in addition to having that educational experience, and we expect you to work hard on the program, you have to have a good work-life balance. And our students do that really well because of that close-knit community which we have. They organize a whole series of events, from quite formal events, such as the Vet Ball, which is what you can see in the bottom image down here, to a rodeo, which is not a North American rodeo, but a fundraising event for local animal charities, which is what's happening in the top image here. The Panto and the Review just seem to excuses to make fun of all of the staff, because the staff and the students get involved in many of these activities because of that close-knit community which we have. But you'll also get to meet other students at the university, because you can join any of the university's clubs and societies, and you'll get opportunities to meet students from the other veterinary schools. ABS Weekend is the Association of Veterinary Students Weekend, where the schools get together to play sport against each other, and it's hosted in rotation by the schools. But importantly on our calendar, we also have Dick Day, and Dick Day is important because there is another vet school in Scotland, and we have to keep them in their place every year, and we do that by our students beating their students at everything on Dick Day. But I say you can join any of the university's clubs and societies, because in addition to joining the School of Veterinary Medicine, you also join the University of Glasgow. University of Glasgow is an ancient university, founded in 1451, but it's also ranked in the top 100 universities in the world. We run with about 29,000 students. Of those, about 20% are international. But if we look specifically at the vet school, that proportion increases to about 50% being international. Many of them coming from North America because of that AVMA accreditation. But we also have students from other countries around the world. So you'll get a truly international experience if you come to Glasgow. We are aware that going to vet school is expensive, and therefore we're trying to help wherever we can. We mentioned that the FeePass program was one initiative to try and lower the costs for you. But what we also do is we fix the fees at the point of entry. So what you pay for the first year that you're on our program will be what you pay for all of the years that you're on the program. Now that is fixed in pounds sterling. So if there's a change in the exchange rate, you might get fluctuations. There's no hidden inflationary rises within that cost structure. Cost of living in Glasgow is less than it is in the other capital cities in the UK, London being the capital of England, Edinburgh being the capital of Scotland. Our climate is moderate, so we're very unlikely to get more than 75 degrees maximum in summer. In winter, on average, we're sitting about 41 degrees Fahrenheit. They say if you don't like the weather in Scotland, just wait 5 minutes and it'll change, because we can get sun and rain and sleet and fog all happening very, very quickly within a day. We don't tend to get much snow within the city of Glasgow itself, and when we do, it's complete chaos, because we're just not set up for it. We can guarantee that we can provide you with a high quality veterinary education, but if you are going to go overseas, you should be looking to have something else. You should be looking to have a cultural experience. And Glasgow is a fantastic place to do that from. It's a very safe and exciting city. It's the largest city in Scotland and the 3rd most populated in the UK. Been in the news lots recently because of the COP26 summit. Joe Biden has been over in Glasgow in the buildings. Just actually, you can see some of the buildings that he's been in just in the top image here. And Glasgow was built along the River Clyde, because of the fact of it was kind of fame and fortune came about because of international shipbuilding and international trade. But most of that has now moved on to the air system, and therefore Glasgow has reinvented itself, and it's now one of the financial capitals of Europe. It's a culturally very vibrant city. There's many, many things going on within the city. And for the last few years, it's been voted the world's friendliest city. So it's a great place to come that 5 years of your veterinary education. Within the city, there are many, many museums and art galleries and theatres. So there's lots and lots of things for you to do. It's got a very vibrant and rich architectural history and a fantastic music scene. And Glasgow is also the home of Scottish soccer. But I mentioned it's built along the River Clyde. Because it's built along the River Clyde, it's actually a very long, thin city. So if you want to escape from the city, you're more of a, you like to go out in the countryside, then if you head north or south, you can be, within 15 minutes, you can be out in the countryside. So you can be hill walking, hiking, mountaineering, fishing, playing golf. All of these things are really, really accessible to you. Now, the other thing which you should bear in mind is that within an hour of Glasgow, there are 3 international airports. And therefore, this means you have great opportunities to explore the rest of Europe. For about maybe 30 bucks, you can get a return flight. And so we'll see our students disappearing off at the end of the day on Friday, then rolling back in, having caught a red-eye flight on the Monday morning, having been to one of the European countries, or been to Paris, been to Barcelona, been to Oslo. All of these things are very, very possible from the University of Glasgow. So that's given you a little flavour of how the systems work and how the FEPAS programme works. And we'll open this up for any questions. And our local colleagues there in Ohio will keep us straight on any of the aspects relative to your program.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really want to change my career path now. I want to go to the University of Glasgow. But I think I'm probably at that age limit where I have to start thinking differently. So, let's open it up.
We'll still take you as a student.
You would? Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, I might. Well, never say never, right? Yeah, let's open it up for our students. So we have a lot of new faces here from, I think some of the, I jotted down everyone's name, so hopefully I have everybody. There's a couple people who have talked to me already. And just for the rest of you, I'm Dr. George, in case you haven't talked to me yet. So as the coordinator for this program, I work very closely with both Neil and Joyce, and then obviously with Elizabeth and Ryan here locally, for us to facilitate this opportunity for you. So if you are, after today, become extremely interested in this program, we'll need to get you switched over to having me as your academic advisor. And that is so that it fits everything that Dr. Evans was just talking about. We need to make sure that you're accomplishing the courses that you need within the time period that you would have, so that when you do apply, and if you are accepted to the program, we know that you're ready to go and fulfill your last final credits here at Ohio State via the classes that you're going to take in your first year at Glasgow. So we already have that agreement in place. And so there's specific courses that you need to make sure you accomplish while you're here. And so again, if you haven't already switched me as an advisor, you can literally email Dr. Davis, and you can look up Mike Davis, email Dr. Davis, tell him that because you would like to pursue the University of Glasgow FEPAS program, you are requesting to switch to me as your advisor, and he will make that happen. Okay, so that's just kind of nuts and bolts first. So now I know there were several questions I think popped up in chat as well. I think the first question had to do with community college credits. And so Joyce and Neil, if you can kind of respond to that. What's the expectation as far as some of the courses? Because we do have a lot of transfer students into Ohio State also.
Yeah, we would accept the community college transfers, and there's no problem with that. As long as they have the prereqs that we require, the chemistry, organic chemistry, biology or biochemistry, physics, maths, or statistics. So we're absolutely fine with that.
Okay, brilliant.
Next one.
If you're accepted, are you able to change your mind before senior year?
Yes.
So are you, go ahead, Joyce, so go ahead.
Oh, sorry, absolutely. We're not gonna, if, you know, people's circumstances change and if things changed, what we would ask is that you give us as much notice as possible if you've changed your mind, so that we can then maybe offer you a place to somebody else, but it's not an issue.
Yeah, and now I'm going to add on, if you are, say you are already there, you know, then it's just a matter of you need to work with, again, us and with Glasgow to make sure that we can help you with that process, because it would be a process, but it doesn't mean, you know, you're not going to be chained, right? We're not going to force you. So at least not yet. I haven't seen that. So yeah, so we will work with you to help you figure out what you need to do, because there would be some complications in it in order to get you back into the OSU system and to transfer maybe what credits you have or haven't had. And so it would be a little bit muddy, but you know, we would try to help you with that. Okay, if you're a sophomore now, would I apply junior year then? So yeah, so as Dr. Evans was presenting there, typically we do seem to have juniors that are applying. Now you could apply as early as sophomore if you had the right prereqs already accomplished. We tend to not have the right prereqs ready to apply by the end of sophomore year. So we're typically applying then mid junior year, which for us would be then December-ish timeframe. Yeah. So if you are, for instance, a junior now, this would be the time frame that you're working with me to make sure, number one, all of your courses are appropriate, and that you would be working towards the application process, because that application process ultimately is the Glasgow's decision, right, to accept you or not accept you. But we have a process here as well where we vet the applications before they even move forward to Glasgow. So to be a part of the FEPAS program, and part of that is, again, some of it is just double checking that everything is in place, but then the other part is to make sure that, you know, we've had conversation with you. We know, we feel confident that, you know, you're ready to take on something like moving to Glasgow for 5 years, and, you know, that you have priorities that align with making this the right program for you. We want it to be a good experience, right? Everybody does. Everybody on this call wants it to be a good experience. We don't want to get you in a position, you know, where you go, you know, maybe this really wasn't for me. We would like to make sure that you're prepped for it to make that decision before you even go. Doesn't mean, again, that you can't change later, but we just try to do our best to help on the forefront so that, you know, you're successful as you move forward. So it's a two-part application. The first one is to get through the review here at OSU, and then it moves on to Glasgow. So we typically would review applications in the end of fall semester. So starting to come up on that time period now. We then flip that to Glasgow at the very beginning of spring semester. So early January is when we then give that information to Joyce and Neil to say, here are the applications that have made it through the OSU process. Would you please, you know, accept and review these for their own acceptance? And again, ultimately, the decision is the University of Glasgow's, not OSU. We just help them to feel confident that we know that you're in a good spot here at OSU to move forward. So it may be sophomore year, but it's typically into the junior year that we end up actually getting the official application done. If you happen to have come in with a lot of transfer credits, that might be different, right? That's a case-by-case type thing.
But it's good to have that conversation with Dr. George in your sophomore year, so that you can plan out your course plan for that junior year. And then if you decide you're not going to apply, you've not lost anything by doing that particular course plan, but it means that you've got that option open to you as you go forward.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I try to do. So yes, that's why I suggest go ahead and switch to me as your advisor now, so that we can move on that plan. And as Dr. Evans just said, doesn't mean that you're committed. It just means that you would be prepared if to have it as an option. Okay. Is there any way to visit Glasgow? Well, yeah. So we had originally had hopes that we were going to run something this spring. Obviously, for those of you that had applied, you now know, I think, Ryan, the message went out. Yes, yeah. You now know that that is not going to be able to happen in March of this year. So again, depending on where you are in your academic career, you know, our hopes is that we're going to try again next year. And hope that the world is in a better place so that we can make a short-term program work. As far as individually, though, Joyce, I don't know what your thought, and Neil, what your thoughts are.
Yeah,
there.
we've had a couple of people visit just this month, who were hoping to go onto the FEPAS, to join us on the FEPAS program. So again, as long as we have enough notice, we are not all on campus yet. We're running a rota system. But when somebody visits, we make sure that there's somebody there to meet with them. And we also organise one of our student ambassadors to show you around the school and everything. So yeah, you can visit if that's what you want to do, but we need that notice. And then obviously if things change, which I hope they won't, we just need to keep an eye on the government guidelines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it is possible, but that would be done independently unless you, from us here at OSU. But again, depending on where you are in your academic career, there is the potential that we'll try again next March. So that would be March of 23, to have another spring break program, which takes students there and studies other things as on top of what we do there at University of Glasgow. Do you need to have all your prereqs prior to applying, or if it's on the schedule, is that okay?
Well, we don't need, as long as it's on the schedule and we know that you're going to, supposing it's organic chemistry, that you would be completing that before you come. And in that situation, your offer would be conditional on achieving, I think it's a minimum of a C in organic chemistry. But
Yeah.
You would need to make sure you have the prereqs that you need for Ohio before you join us.
Right.
How long does the admissions process take? Well, as Kelly said, she receives the applications about the beginning of December, is that right?
Yeah, somewhere around beginning of December. Yep.
Yeah, and we get them as soon after that, the beginning of January. And it usually takes just about a week before we can let you have a decision. So you would know, basically, worst case scenario is you would know by the end of January.
Yeah. So yeah, so then the goal would be obviously as an early commit, if you will, program. Then it's just a matter of concentrating to make sure that your grades stay where they need to be. Because there's always the position of, well, if you don't just get to blow off the rest of that semester or year, but that you maintain, the GPA that's expected. And as Joyce said, if you had maybe a prereq that was just on the schedule that they didn't get to review the grade for, that you are also obviously accomplishing a successful grade in that as well. So it is kind of conditional at that point, just with the assumption that you're going to be successful in your courses. Okay. Good questions.
Are there any interviews held during the admissions processes? No, we don't tend to, well, under normal circumstances, we usually visit the Ohio State once a year, but we're not been able to do that. We don't have interviews per se. We trust Dr. George's judgment. And you've been vetted at that stage. So I think she would, from what we have had in the past, she always just sends us her good students. And we know that they've thought about coming to Glasgow, that they've thought about spending that time abroad. I know a lot of people are desperate to get into veterinary school and you think, well, this will be great. I don't have to do all the other stuff. but you need to think it through. It's not for everybody. And it's a fantastic experience, but I think you'll probably have discussed that with Dr. George before your application is submitted.
Yes, and again, the earlier that you can get into me as having me as your advisor, the more opportunities we have to have those kinds of discussions. I will say though, you know, as far as the decision here at Ohio State, it is not only my input. It does go through a review committee here at Ohio State. So it is not just, I do probably have some influence in the sense of trying to prepare you the best that I can as far as helping you with the application and so forth. But ultimately, it does go through more than just me. It goes through a review committee here. Most students have been successful. There has been one student, unfortunately, that did not pass out of the Ohio State committee in order to move forward. So it can happen, but we do try to make sure that everybody is as prepared as possible. So far, let's see, we have 3 students who are actually there at Glasgow. We've had basically 1 a year, I think, since we started the program.
Yeah.
This year, I know of 2 people, both are on the call here that are interested in applying. So I have Rose and Athena, who are both interested in applying. And I think Joyce and Neil, you've met Athena before because she was here when you were still visiting OSU.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so, but you haven't had the chance to meet Rose. And then we have, I know I've already talked with Sarah. I don't know if she's on the call. I don't see her name. Sarah is interested, but will be a year out. And then of course we have all of the lovely students that are on here today. So just out of curiosity, just maybe raise your hand. Are you first year? If you're first year, 2 first years. Okay, how about second year? Who's my second years? Okay, so I have 2 second years. Joel, where are you? Are you third year? Okay, so we need to talk right away then, if you're already third year. Okay. Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, perfect. So we do have a few second years. So again, I think that this is a great timing for us to have this this discussion, because this is where we really need to start getting down to nuts and bolts and what do you have on your degree audit and what do you need to achieve in the next time period, you know, short time period in order to apply. So what other questions do we have?
Do you
do we
require
yeah.
recommendation letters? Yes, we usually ask for an academic reference, which may come from Dr. George, may come from somebody else on faculty, and one from the veterinarian that you shadowed.
Yeah, and I would throw in, I would typically, as the advisor, suggest that you get someone outside of me as a different faculty. Because I'm already a part of the conversation as far as referencing. And so we would like to have somebody other than myself serve as an academic reference.
Okay. Okay. So
the application, just so you know, does request that you, you write a narrative, right? You have to write your reasoning for wanting to go, not just to vet school, but to Glasgow in particular. You need to be able to demonstrate that you have had some experience with animals and what does that look like. So I know that there was the 2 weeks of shadowing a veterinarian, but you know, we're looking for the normal when it goes to veterinary school, right? How much experience have you had with different types of animals? So you'll need to disclose that and talk about that a bit. Obviously, we can talk about your GPA because we'll see your degree audit or your advisory report, transcript, whatever you want to call it. Let's see, what I'm trying to think what else is on that application.
I just wanted to say, and we've asked for 2 weeks experience with a veterinarian. If you guys have had a problem getting that amount of experience because of COVID, then as long as you've had experience in a veterinary practice, even if it's just 2 or 3 days, just so that you're aware of what happens, what the negative sides are, as well as the nice fluffy bunnies and kittens and things. So we are making allowances for that at the moment. So don't let that stop you from applying if you haven't had the full 2 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Just so that you also know, kind of just in a nutshell, the differences between pursuing the 4-year here at Ohio State and what gets kind of counted when you're abroad. Basically, your animal health classes are covered at Glasgow, so 3170, 3270. Your internship is considered covered at Glasgow. So it doesn't mean that you don't need experience, as we were just talking about, but you would not need the required 200 hours because we would consider what you're doing in Glasgow to be an opportunity for that kind of an experience. Also, your major elective credits are all considered to be covered by what you take at the University of Glasgow. So because you're not taking 3170, that first health class here, that means you need special permission to get into your production courses typically, because that's typically a requirement. So that means that it's a conversation between me telling the production person, the production professor, hey, they're not going to have that because of their plan doesn't require them to take that here. So there is some communication that needs to take place amongst our faculty to make sure that you're going to still be able to achieve what you need while you're here. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for us? We're coming up on our time.
No?
I would just say, so you know as well, on the return, and this is where Elizabeth and Ryan can come into this. So on the return, so say you move forward, you decide to go Glasgow, you're successful, and you do your year. As Dr. Evans described, you know, the real, I guess I will say, assessment takes place at the end of the first academic year, right? So successful completion of that academic year, by the time it's graded there and gets back to us because of the semester change, the timing difference, by the time that gets back to us, we typically then cannot complete your bachelor's until that summer. So it's not that you're graduating in May, it's not the spring semester, but you would graduate the summer semester, because that's the timing that we need in order to complete your bachelor's. So I want you to be aware of that, because it would not be a spring semester. It would almost look like you're extending a semester, but you're really not paying any summer tuition. It's just that we can't acknowledge the graduation until summer because of the timing. So I do want you to be aware of that, because if you are planning to attend the graduation, as an example, would not be necessarily in the shoe, you know, in the spring graduation. So we would have still obviously a graduation for summer completion, but really what you're probably targeting then is the big graduation in Glasgow. So.
Okay. But he's asked about the costs. So,
Oh yeah.
So the fees, as Neil said, are set in UK pounds. And for entry in 22 is 32,500 UK pounds, which is $43,450 at today's rate. Because the dollar is at 1.33, it's gone down, which is better for you guys. It was at 1.37. But because it's a study abroad program, then the University of Ohio would administer your financial aid for the first year. And I think if you have scholarships, you can use them. Is that right, Kelly? Yes, so you could use them for the first year.
Mm-hmm.
If you stay, and we haven't had anybody who hasn't stayed, your financial aid would be administered by Glasgow from year 2 onwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So Rose
Thanks,
has
Rose.
right. Okay, thank you, Rose.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So all of your financial aid, because you would be basically enrolled in a study abroad, you're enrolled in a study abroad at the rate of Glasgow. So your half year or your semester rate would be half of that cost, whatever that cost is that's determined at the time of entry into Glasgow. And then, so any financial aid that you have associated with attending OSU is a part or can be applied to that. So you don't pay OSU tuition that final year, you pay whatever that Glasgow tuition is for the first year, right? That's the agreement between Glasgow and Ohio State. So that's that saving money part that Dr. Evans was talking about, right? That first year, which is a pretty daggone sweet deal on top of everything else. But then as Joyce just mentioned, then once you technically complete that year, you are no longer going to be an OSU student because you will have graduated, you've completed your bachelor's. You will be strictly at that point a University of Glasgow student.
Yeah.
Nobody asked about visas or anything either, just so that you know. Joyce will work with anybody who is starting to or will be coming to Glasgow as helping you with visa. Is that still correct? Yeah.
Yeah, that's still correct. We will we'll start working with you towards your visa. And another question that people ask quite often is your healthcare is covered within the cost of your visa. So you would be covered for medical expenses while you are here in Glasgow in the terms of your visa.
And the visa cost is in addition, correct?
The visa cost, I should have looked this up. So altogether, it's about $800, but that includes your healthcare supplement as well. And it's compulsory, you have to pay that. So, but that would cover you for the full 5 years.
Right.
So it's not that you have to apply for a visa every year. And even if you're coming on the 1 year study abroad and you're not sure if you want to stay, you still apply for a visa for 5 years. Because if you don't, you have to pay for it again. So if you came, you've got a 5-year visa, everything's fine. If you decide you want to go home, we would get in touch with the UK border agency and we would revoke your visa. So there's not an issue with that.
Perfect.
But basically it's the same cost for 1 year as it is for 5 years. Excuse me.
Okay. I think we tried to cover other questions that we thought might be relevant, but is there anything else before we disconnect today?
I mean, the other one which is commonly asked is accommodation.
Yeah.
So as an international student, you're guaranteed university accommodation if you want to take it. There's a variety of different forms of accommodation. So you can go into a dorm. There is a dorm located on the Garscube campus. It's the only catered dorm the university has. It's single occupancy, but you guys have done the dorm room thing, so you may not want to do that anymore. There is this kind of self-catering apartments which the university owns, so you can go down that route as well, where you would share a living room and a kitchen with a group of 4 or 5 other students, but you'd have your own ensuite room. If you want, and so that's all very easy. And again, that would all kind of click into place if you were made an offer, then you could get into that system to get access to the accommodation. If you didn't want to stay in university accommodation, or if you wanted to bring a pet with you, there's a large amount of private accommodation very, very close to the university itself. And again, some of that accommodation is passed down between generations of vet students. So as one lot leave, the next lot come in. So again, there's systems in place to kind of pass on some of that accommodation to incoming students.
So there was another question on the chat. Kelly, do you?
Yeah, I just answered it actually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the question was, because in our curriculum, we have some things about study abroad counting as a production course, but no, and the reason why is because it's already counting for other courses that are a part of your curriculum. So that's why we can't count it that way. So good question though. Perfect. Anything else for me or for Joyce or for Neil or for Elizabeth or Ryan? We're all set. Thank you very much for your time today, all of you, but certainly for Neil and Joyce for joining us. So we appreciate it. I don't remember what time it is there, but it's got to be close to the end of your day. So
it's just after 4 in the afternoon here.
Okay.
So bad.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
Athena, Athena came off mute for 1 sec. Did you have a last question? I was wondering if there was any like email that would be if I have like questions later that I could contact.
Yep, I could put my email address on the chat, if that helps.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Athena, for that. I appreciate that. So yes, please feel free again to reach out to Joyce. She'll give you her email here in the chat. And then again, if it's OSU related, please feel free to contact me, and we'll see if we can't answer your question. Okay, if I don't know the answer, we'll find it out together. So, yeah. Okay, perfect.
Okay, and
All right.
there is a slim chance that we might visit the Ohio State in March 22. If that doesn't happen, then we're quite happy. If people have decided they want to come and study in Glasgow, then we're quite happy to have a Zoom session, and friends and family could be at it too, if that would help them to alleviate any concerns that they have. So one way or another, if you apply, you're successful, we'll probably be speaking to you again at some point.
Yes, exactly. And if they do get the opportunity to come, we'll make sure that's advertised to everybody who is here, as well as anyone else that would be interested in coming. So,
Okay.
excellent. Thank you, everyone. Again, I appreciate all of your time. I hope that it's a great program. I know we didn't get to go this March, but I have been there. I have seen the snug and the coffee shop and all of those places. And yeah, it's a brilliant opportunity. So I hope you do consider it, because again, it's not for everyone, but if it is something for you, I think that it's a great opportunity. So let us know how we can help. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
weekend.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.